So President-elect Trump is claiming a huge victory on the border crisis after that talk with Mexico's president. We welcome now Alex Sands, Deputy Managing Editor and Politics Director for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Alex, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks so much for joining us.
Happy Thanksgiving and great to see you this morning.
Great to see you as well. So we heard Robert say it there, the president-elect talking now about that conversation on Truth Social. He wrote this, quote, "Mexico will stop people from going to our southern border effective immediately. This will go a long way towards stopping the illegal invasion of the USA." So President Sheinbaum issued her own statement earlier Wednesday saying that Mexico's position was, quote, "not to close borders, but to address migration while respecting human rights." It is important to note, I think, that both had mentioned this was an excellent conversation immediately after having it. Now we have these discrepancies in exactly what happened on that call. Alex, what do you make of it?
It's pretty much what we've seen the last number of years when we hear the difference, the readouts essentially between different heads of state. In this case, it's very much our understanding of this is a setting of the stage for what happens in January once Trump takes office, essentially saying that this is what I plan to do. I intend to do this by way of tariffs, by really putting more pressure on countries around us, in this case, Mexico, to make sure that his goal of reducing migration, reducing the flow of drugs into this country is realized. That said, the starting point at this point is a very high tariff. The president of Mexico, as you said, seems open to the conversation and is willing to have the conversation. But that discrepancy is what's important. It's a setting of the stage, in essence, of here's where we are today. How much more progress can we make in the conversation between now and Inauguration Day in January to make sure that both countries can move forward with the relationship that's been built over many decades, while also realizing fewer people moving into the U.S. along the Mexico border, while also making sure that the tariffs themselves may not be as painful as some people think they might be if that 25% does come to happen.
Alex, I know you'll remember this. When we look back at 2019, Trump also threatened tariffs on Mexico unless the country came to the table to talk about securing the southern border, and the country did. In June, he removed that threat of tariffs, and the numbers at the border did drop. This time around, he's saying if Mexico doesn't stop the flow of migrants, he would impose a 25% tax on essentially all products entering into the U.S. from Mexico and increase those tariffs if there isn't compliance. So do you believe that, in essence, the strategy is the same this time around? We may see the same outcome here.
It's entirely possible. I think when you look at the big picture, it is about negotiation and about making a deal. There are a lot of critics. There are Democrats. There are some economists who say that a 25% tariff on goods into this country, wherever they're coming from, we didn't mention China, it would be slightly higher for imports coming from China. That could potentially be a cost that's passed on to consumers in this country. At a time when inflation is still a concern for Americans in all 50 states, the idea of people paying even more for basic things, whether it's groceries, cars, and things that you need to really realize everyday life. There is a concern that those tariffs could potentially, those costs be passed on to consumers across the country. So again, we are still weeks out from Inauguration Day. There is certainly a sense that as part of his broader conversation, where can we really, make that intersection of what the U.S. needs and what the other countries could do? That is where the conversation is likely heading over the next several weeks.
And I thought her response was interesting as well. She essentially said that she would impose tariffs in retaliation to those proposed by Trump. Much has been made about her response.
There's certainly an understanding that the campaign had and the transition team has that there is certainly a large number of people across the country who elected President Trump and J.D. Vance to really take down what they say are the pressures they're facing in their everyday, whether it's the cost of gas, the money they spend on some basic things. So if there is conversation about increasing that cost, that is a pressure that the transition team and those involved with the campaign will hear. and likely that will influence policy as those conversations.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.